Sounds True presents Transforming Your Relationship with Money, Session 10, with Joe Dominguez.
For anybody who still, in some way, has it wired that, yeah, I know money can't buy happiness, but, it's the second best thing, or, all the different cliches about that, or somebody earlier was saying, well, I'll know what to do if I win a lottery, in spite of what that book says about lottery winners. And yeah, we're always the exception. Isn't it wonderful in all of life? We're always the exception. There's no norm. We're always above the norm. I used to work in a toy store when I was working my way through college, and I made a study of the fact that there is no parents have normal children. Right? And so therefore all those toy companies putting for ages 3 to 6 on the boxes, guess what? They know that no parent admits that their kid has an average intelligence. So they always jack up those numbers. Anyway, for those that still think that somehow there's a correlation between money that you have in your life and happiness, here goes. From your own worksheets, this is from this audience. Those that had incomes from $0 to $1,000 per month, their average quality of life rating from the cards here, was 2.6. For incomes, 1,001 to 2,000, your quality of life rating was 2.8. Not statistically significant, but now we're getting into the higher numbers. For 2001 to 3,000 monthly incomes, you had a quality of life rating of 2.7. 3 to 4, you had quality of life of 2.8. And the big timers, quality of life 4 and up. Okay, you had 2.8. Tell me about more money means more happiness. In your own audience, right here. Can you dig it? The distribution of 5s and 1s for statisticians here is still the same. It's still about right. Sometimes you get a nice bell curve. Other times you get a straight line. Never have I gotten statistically significant increases. In other words, in doing this, I've never gotten that your 3,000 to 4,000 a month are like 3.8. Rarely are they even topping 3. Sometimes I even get, this is 3.1 over here, and this is 2.6 down here, reversed, which is still not statistically particularly significant. If we were to have 2 here, 4 here, then yeah. So, lest you think that you're an exception, and if you had money, you'd be happy. How about the folks that have it? They're not any happier than you are with your 2,000 income. There isn't a correlation. Sorry. That's like killing Santa Claus, ain't it? Step 5. Now we start making this stuff visible. Tabulation is good stuff, nice columns of numbers. Now we begin to set it up so we can look at it. We create a chart. I recommend a large chart, 24 by 36. On this scale, up and down, set it up so that whatever you're spending or earning currently is somewhere around the middle. So, just arbitrarily, let's say it's 0 to 4,000, with 2,000 around the middle here. And here is months, starting with the month that you set up the chart. When you run out of paper, you'll get another piece of paper, so don't ask how many months. You'll be running this, if you're really in the program, I've got this now 26 years. Okay, I got 26 years worth of this chart for myself. On here, you enter that total monthly expense that you got from your monthly tabulation. It's apt to look something like this. You'll have a drop like this because the moment you start becoming conscious of your spending patterns from the tabulation, and you start paying attention to those dollar sign with a slash through it, that's all, just noting them, just mentally filing. See, one of the categories that I didn't even mention on that tabulation is Gazingas pins. Everybody's got Gazingas pins. Doesn't mean anything, but you've got a category in your life for Gazingas pins. A Gazingas pin is that thing that you buy totally automatically. Let me give you an example. Before the seminar, you going into a store. Oh, look, the latest model Gazingas pin. Just what I've always wanted. And you go to the checkout line, and you plop down your money, and you go home with your Gazingas pin. Robotic. And then you put it into the Gazingas pin drawer, and you promptly forget about it. Now, after the seminar, and after you have observed from your monthly tabulation that there's this column Gazingas pin, and you've been shocked out of your wits, and you can never find one anyway, and what the hell do you want with all those Gazingas pins? Rah, 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 rah. And you finally remembered, oh no, no judgment, and you put your mark. Now you're at the store. Still robotic. Totally. Oh, look, a Gazinga. Wow! 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 Red alert, red alert. Beep, 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 beep. Why? Am I just making that up? Is this just a good routine? No. What are we talking about when we're talking about looking at each one of those columns in that tabulation? We're talking about fulfillment. Fulfillment is very, very close to something we all know about, the survival instinct. We all want to be fulfilled, whether we call it happier or, more richer life, whatever we want to call it, whatever languaging we put to it, it's part of the drive. Oh, I know there's masochists, they enjoy suffering. Okay, so they're being fulfilled by suffering. It doesn't matter. But that's fundamental, it's basic, it's primitive. Now, what we wrote by putting that symbol down, that dollar sign with the slash through it, we told ourselves, I'm not getting fulfillment for this expenditure of money or of life energy. So we've now wired it in that spending this life energy is opposite to fulfillment. Now, when you touch a hot stove, you get burned. And you have learned to not touch a hot stove. What do you think is going to happen when you've got it wired that Gazingas pins don't give you fulfillment? You're going to get burned. You're going to have that same survival instinct coming forth. You're going to remember, wow, this isn't giving me fulfillment. What the hell am I doing? Spending money or time energy or life energy on this. That's how it works. That's how we rewire our circuits. For deprivation? No. Greater fulfillment? Yes. It's that simple. It really is that simple. So, this expenses curve will drop. And then you'll totally space out the program. I'm not an idealist, I'm a realist. I know. So it jumps up to there. And then you get guilty. And then you really cut back and you budget and you do all kinds of things and you come down to here. And you're miserable. You totally forgot that this isn't about depriving yourself. You're cursing me out, you're so miserable. And then you remember, oh, wait, I'm playing this wrong. And then you restabilize. We're looking at that trend, that thing, that imaginary line going through it all, with the wild peaks and valleys, but there's that basic trend. For most people, there is a large drop, and we'll get more into that later. But with that large drop in spending is a large increase in fulfillment. The opposite, you're rewiring. So we label that curve monthly expenses, total monthly expenses. Now, some people will start off, and you'll be doing a lot more with this chart, some people start off by having this all rolled up in a drawer. Then when they begin to see that this all works, hey, this is, my God, this makes so much sense. How come I didn't think of this? They'll put it in the back of their closet door. And then when they really, really get inspired, and they really get that, oh my God, this is not only working, but this can really, really work for me. They put it in the front of their closet door. Eventually they have it framed in a beautiful frame that they spent $2.95 for, and they have it in the living room over the couch. And they're proud. Anybody who comes in, what the hell is that you got on the wall? Oh, let me tell you about it. This is what I'm doing with my life, you know. This is what my life looks like. Really, really. It's a lot of houses I go into and I look at it and there it is in the wall. So that's all step 5 is. Making it visible. Creating that chart. Very simple. Let's now jump to step 6, which I simply title as Respecting Your Life Energy. We said that by rewiring that circuit, by getting that it isn't about spending more money that's going to give you fulfillment, but by looking at how you're getting more fulfillment by spending less money, but not trying to spend less money, but just by trying to go for more fulfillment, now you can apply consciousness. That 4th step of that 5-step metaphor. What if you were conscious about lowering that curve? Not because you're budgeting, not because you should, but simply because you're respecting your life energy. You're realizing that that's representing your life energy. There you are, those 40 hours a week, 1/3 of your life, just earning that stuff and then spending it. How about if I was to respect that stuff, that life energy, which I have a very, very limited quantity of? At 40 years old, I've only got 270,000 of those hours available to me for the duration. That's it. Until checkout time, that's it. So what if I honored that? There's 2 ways. One is in how you spend it, and the other in how you acquire that money, which is your life energy. So step 6 is looking at, seriously, and this is one that you do yourself at home, are there more efficient ways for me to spend my life energy? There's 2 categories for it. There's what we can call the automatic lowering of expenses, which is questions like that, am I getting fulfillment and is it in alignment? And then it becomes totally automatic, like the robotic Gazingas pin, red alert type of thing. And the other one is conscious. Conscious, again, breaks into 2 more categories. There's conscious elimination and conscious consumerism. By conscious elimination, I mean, are there categories of spending that you could consciously eliminate? Simple. For instance, might it not be pretty stupid to be spending a lot of money on interest, on paying interest? That credit card that you run up the bills on, and 1/5 of your money, of your life energy, is going into interest. That's roughly what the interest rates are on credit cards. Oh yeah, if you pay it off immediately, well, that's fine. Currently, there's no interest being charged on that. Soon there will be. Many of the credit card companies are looking to charging interest from the day it's billed, that the sale is billed. But a lot of people run up big credit card bills. 20%, 1/5, between 18 and 21% of every one of the bucks that you send into them is going to interest. So in other words, 1/5 of the life energy is just going out the window to interest. That makes sense? Or buying a car this is outrageous in this day and age. But imagine that, buying a car on time payments instead of cash. And they know how to sucker you. 8.8, 7.3. Buy our brand and we'll give you the biggest, Compound that out. Sit down with paper and pencil and calculator and figure out how much over the life of that bill you're paying in interest. Astronomical. I love people that keep all kinds of money in banks at 5% and continue to pay 12 or 16% on their mortgages. Makes lots of sense. Think about it. That's a big chunk that you can eliminate just by being smart. How about auto repair bills? Can you eliminate those? You sure can. And a mechanic here will tell you that one of the finest diagnostic tools and preventive maintenance tools is, once again, a little book. And you keep it in the dash. It can be a little bit bigger. You keep it in the glove compartment. Every time you put in gas, you put down the date, the gallons, the odometer reading, etc., etc. And then every so often you work out the miles per gallon. Every time you add oil, you put it in there. Every time you notice that the tire in the left front is a little bald, you write it in there. That it's just going bald. It's still got another good 1,000 miles on it or so. You write it in there. And once a month or so, you look at that little book. You'll have to in order to take your gas expenses out or to double check your little book. And guess what? You'll see all of a sudden, hey, this thing is burning a lot of oil. Or it'll prepare you to start looking for tire sales. And instead of desperately going and buying a gas station tire at top buck, you know you got 1,000 miles warning. And guess what? The next Sunday you open the paper and there's this incredible tire sale at 50% off. That's the way it operates. And then when you watch your miles per gallon dropping rather significantly, hey, I think it's time for a tune-up. And when you log in the tune-up, you notice, oh my God, I let it go, 20,000 instead of 15,000 miles between tune-ups. Over the life of that car, you will have saved enormous amounts in repair bills by keeping that kind of tabs. You don't even have to know mechanicking. You just know to log in all those significant vital signs of the car. And on and on. I could do a whole seminar on that. Just logical, intelligent, and none of them are for the purpose of, as somebody wrote me a note, of making squeezing the dollar until the queen grins. Apparently that's a Canadian version. So none of this is for that purpose. See, it saves you hassles. It's much nicer to buy a tire at your discretion when you got time, rather than having to blow out on the rainy night, because the air was beginning to show through. Or have that unexpected breakdown on the way to the airport, So they serve, these conscious tools, techniques, serve many other functions besides stretching the dollar. How about eliminating unnecessary medical bills by staying healthy? Isn't it so obvious? But if there's doctors in the house, how many of your patients work at staying healthy? Most docs that I talk to say, hey, listen, maybe 5% of the people I see have any consciousness of wellness or take active measures to stay healthy. And I don't mean by rigorous diets or rigorous exercise or, going bananas in any way, in any one direction or another, just by very fundamental, intelligent stuff. Not the latest fad or the latest magic potion. How about cost-intensive hobbies? Oh yeah, it's really much more satisfying to ski at Vail than to ski at the local snow hill, right? It's really so much better. It's a boasting to your friends. Well, we were at Vail last weekend. Or all kinds of other garbage like that. Is that really the way you want to use up? Look at the life energy that you spent on doing it at Vail instead of, or whatever the high-priced equivalent is around here, rather than doing it at a local hill, or other cost-intensive hobbies or pastimes or sports. There's a wonderful little book that was written about 15 years ago called Home Inc. One of the beautiful things it pointed out was how pastimes and sports and hobbies that people participated in have increased in the last 50 years, have increased in cost as personal income has gone up. People have striven, worked overtime to find more ways to spend their excess income, inventing ever more expensive pastimes. Now, you're going to tell me that it's more fun to do this thing today than whatever we were discovering to do 40 years ago or 30 years ago? Nonsense. So lots of other ways that we can consciously value, respect that limited, finite substance called our life energy without deprivation, just by substitution or by rational use of. And then the other side, that second category, is conscious consumerism. So it isn't just eliminating a spending category, but how about knowing value? After all, when you take that wallet out and you spend some money, what's going out? A chunk of your life energy. How about if you were to value that so that what you got in return was of merit, of value? Let me give you an example of that. 10 years ago, or I guess closer to 15 years ago, when cassettes first came out, audio cassettes first came out, they were absolute garbage. You would spend $10 on an audio cassette and the quality stank. And guess what? Cassette equipment did not take off, because the leading edge of any consuming public is usually your files, like audiophile. And audiophiles just, checked it out and said, hey, no way we're going to spend money. We're going to stay with open reel-to-reel tape. So the industry was forced to produce higher and higher quality stuff until finally there was that crossover point, and at that point the audiophiles came in and said, all right, good, you've produced something worthy of our notice. Now, that was because of the snobbishness of audiophileness. Most people can't hear 15,000 hertz, 15,000 CPS. Dogs may. Most people can't. But boy, you wouldn't buy a piece of equipment unless it was 18 hertz, So in a very small segment of the consuming public, their wisdom, their demand for quality forced the industry. How about cars? Look at today's cars. Compare the quality, durability of today's cars to 20 years ago. All right, we may have had the catalyst of an oil crisis, but overall, it was the demand the public made, almost killed Detroit out of it, but the demand that the public made for higher quality, greater durability, et cetera, et cetera. Industry after industry, this is true. An intelligent consumer forces that kind of up-leveling. Look at all the magazines, Consumer Reports and Consumer's Digest and so on. Two items, side by side, one selling at 10, the other one selling at 50. And the $10 one is far more durable, far better than your $50 one that's got all the bells and whistles on it. So being conscious of that, reading catalogs. I got most of my education from reading catalogs. Really, it's a fascinating way to learn a field. I think I learned more about auto mechanics by reading the J.C. Whitney catalog. I don't know if you get it up here. It's a discount mail order parts house. And I learned all kinds of esoteric stuff around cars. That's available to you. And it's fun. Just expands your knowledge. I don't mean you have to become an expert or a real bug about it. But that's available to you. And the return on your life energy is superb. Very effective. Anticipating needs is a magic phrase. If you know that you're going to need that tire, if you know you got a major building project coming up and you want to put up that shed, and you need an electric drill and a skill saw, circular saw, well, you start looking at the catalog sale flyers. Guess what? 3 months from now, you're going to see it at half price or 2/3 off in the Sears catalog. It always works that way. by anticipating your need. Or you see it on sale 3 months from now and realize, hey, how stupid, for that lousy shed, I don't even like carpentry, for that lousy shed I'm going to buy, even at 2/3 off, an $80 skill saw, circular saw, when I can borrow one from Charlie down the block for the little need I'm not going to buy one. But if you were to buy it on impulse today, or if you bought because you've got the 2x4s already stacked and you're ready to cut them, I better go and get the skill saw, you'll be paying top dollar. You know, you can take a tax break on certain vacations. There's various organizations, and you can look this up in libraries. You know, the number of books on cost cutting, on saving money are incredible. There's outfits that by you taking a vacation in their particular format, in an area that interests you, that is a research project for them, you're actually donating your time to them, and it is a vacation. So even vacations can be incredibly cheap. So look through your life. After a couple months of looking at that table, you can begin to see, wait, a little consciousness here can knock this down. And I'm not saving money. It's my life energy I'm saving. And you'll see how that life energy mounts up in the next couple of steps. So step 6 is simply that, of look what consciousness applied to your spending patterns might do. We're not talking budgeting. We're not talking deprivation. We're talking intelligence.
This concludes Session 10. Please take the necessary time to answer the review questions for Session 10 on page 93 in your workbook. When you're ready to continue, answer the preview questions for Session 11 on page 97, and then continue listening.
Step 7 is looking at work and income. What is the purpose of paid employment? You know, the interesting thing is there's only one purpose to paid employment. Only one, to get paid. There's only one purpose to paid work, is to get paid. If you're saying anything else, remember, you can do it for free. The question's loaded. The only purpose of paid employment is to get paid. Otherwise, you could do the same activity and not get paid. You could do it out of love. You could do it out of the fact that you enjoy doing it. Outrageous? I said in the beginning, we need to think in outrageous forms. The only purpose of paid work is to get paid. If we can remember that, that doesn't devalue the work you're doing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the work is bad or not valuable or useless or anything. It may be. In many cases, it is. In many cases, once you break it apart and see, that's right, here's pay and here's my work. My work is useless, except for getting paid. That may be fine. No judgment there. But I am saying that the only purpose of paid work is paid, because you could do that work for free. And many people do. Many people get tremendous fulfillment and satisfaction in their lives out of doing volunteer work, out of doing all of their work purely out of service, out of that sense of service, and so on. Monica got her nursing license a couple of years ago after she was financially independent, and she needed hands-on, pardon the expression, hands-on experience. So she went down to Boulder General Hospital applying for a job as a nurse. And she was fully qualified and everything. And then she said, but I don't want any money for it. That fried their circuits and their computer. But she finally explained, you know, I don't want money. I can work something out. We can give it to a charity of my choice or whatever. And they finally arranged it. She became absolutely the most popular nurse in that hospital because patients were asking for her, because there was something so magical and so precious to them about somebody that was just there out of love, just there wanting to be there, not to collect their paycheck, And I'm not saying nurses are automatically in it for the bucks. But knowing that that component wasn't even there at all, just carried some weight. The doctors all knew it. I mean, word just went around the hospital. And of course, there was no absenteeism on her part. She wants to be there. So why would she take time off? You know? And if they needed filling in because some other nurse wanted to, go goof off, of course she'd fill in. It was a pretty magical experience for everybody concerned. So yeah, the idea of separating your money from your work has merit. How much of our work are we attached to because it gives us an identity? And we stay stuck in really stupid jobs that we really, in our heart of hearts, don't want to be there. But I'm a lawyer, what do you do? Or, well, I spent 8 years going to medical school, I'm not going to give it up now, invested in it. Even though the last thing you want to do is be a doctor. Or whatever. The attachments that we have to our roles. When we separate out the money, we can look at that. We can now look at our work and say, is this really what I want to be doing? Is this really the highest thing that I want to be doing with my life? I was once at a party in New York many years ago. A bunch of artists. I had some friends that were artists and writers. And they were kind of smart folks. They invited one of their downstairs neighbors because they knew it might be a pretty loud party. So they invited the adjacent and downstairs neighbors. And off in the corner during this party was this guy, kind of sitting there getting pretty sloshed. He obviously didn't fit. He wasn't, carrying on these artsy conversations and, impressing each other and so on. He was quietly in the corner getting sloshed. And I went over to talk to him. That's the kind of person I'm interested in a party. A guy that's apart from the mainstream and not impressing everybody and, being chic and that. And he was a downstairs neighbor who took the invitation. And he was really put off by all the shishiness and all the stuff about one-upsmanship that was happening at this cocktail party. And I said, well, I think you ought to make your position known. And he was just drunk enough to do it. And he stood up. And he started in this semi-drunk, loud voice, which got soberer and soberer as he went on, just telling the whole group there, whether they wanted to listen or not, that he was a plumber. And he was proud of being a plumber. When that toilet is stopped up, it's a real sense of satisfaction when I unstop it. And it's a service. And he went on, and it was poetry. It was beautiful poetry. It really was. Unfortunately, people in that room got it. It was his passion in life was to stop toilets. All right? He was really getting off on it, and he taught a lesson to a lot of those snobs. And that stayed with me forever. Now, that guy was getting more out of his job. He was in that job not for the bucks, but because of the fulfillment he was getting. Not out of the prestige. There ain't too much prestige in being a plumber. He was in the right place. A lot of the snobby people that were using their art and this and that were not in the right place. They were purely having ego around their jobs. So looking at where are you at in terms of that job? Again, you've got only 300, if you're 40, you've only got 307,000 hours left, of which a third, for most people, a third to a half is spent in the job. Okay. Something that people begin to think about after the seminar is, all right, it's true. My job isn't fulfilling. It brings me a good income. The only purpose of paid employment is the pay. There's lots that I'd rather be doing if I didn't have to make that paycheck. What I suggest is to begin to look at, for a finite period of time, moving to the highest income that's in alignment with your integrity and with your health for a finite period of time, moving towards the highest income that's commensurate with your integrity and with your health for a finite period of time. Let's look at something here. Posting your income on the same chart, on the same scale. Your monthly income. For a lot of people, it will look something like this. Below, right? Below your expenses. Spending more than you were taking in. The American way. And I just said, look at the possibility of moving towards higher income commensurate with integrity and health. Now, for a finite period of time. It may mean get a second job. It may mean up your commitment to that job because it's for a finite period of time. Look at what the concept of for a finite period of time, what it might do to your job, to how you relate to that job. If you knew that it was for a finite period of time. Right now, most people hold their jobs as a forever. Or 65. That's forever for most people, unless you're 60. Really. So look at it. How would it look? How would you relate to that particular job if you knew that it was for a finite period of time? You might get much more involved. You might really put yourself out into it. You might begin to give to that boss what he hired you for. In other words, you might be of integrity. Giving it your all. Giving it your enthusiasm. Giving it your love and your energy. Because it's only for a finite period of time. Because it's now becoming, with that idea of for a finite period of time, more than just the job. What kind of magic can you project with that idea of for a finite period of time? A lot of people discover that they can put that upper curve doing exactly what they're doing. Being a waitress, being a plumber, being an aerospace engineer. Doesn't matter. They don't have to change lifestyles or change jobs or anything. They find that out of that change in their consciousness, that I'm in this job only for a finite period of time. And we'll define that. In the next step, you'll see how that's defined. But that changes how we hold our job. It's no longer just our identity. It's no longer our prestige or status. It's no longer just for the measly old paycheck. It's no longer another day, another dollar. It's no longer everybody's got to earn a living. It's now beginning to fit into that whole framework, that new framework of our lives that we're beginning to create. That new integration. Doesn't matter. So you don't project it up. It doesn't climb wildly. It doesn't matter. It's not going to change any of what is evolving here. One of the things that's evolving is space. That space is more money coming in than is going out. Bankers don't like to have it called space. We call it capital. Okay? We jump calling it savings and we call it capital. Now I want you to apply, for this step, you apply an equation to that difference, that remainder that you have at the end of each month. Capital times what is currently just a mythical figure, current interest rate, and I'll explain that in a little bit, over 12 equals monthly independence, call it independence income. What that means is if you had capital of $1,000 times, say, 12% current interest rate, which I'll explain where you get that number later, over 12 equals $10 per month for life. Monthly independence income for life. So capital of $1,000 invested in some as yet mythical instrument that gives you 12% for indefinite over 12 months means $10 a month. That 1,000 gives you $10 a month for the rest of your life. Now, say you have 1,000. I want you to post the result of that equation, that $10 a month, on exactly the same scale, on the same chart. Here we go. Big deal, right? Big deal. Good. Now the next month, somehow you got together another $1,000, or another 50, or another 5, doesn't matter. Your numbers you work on. So let's say you got another 1,000. Now you apply this formula to 2,000, and you post the results on the chart, on the same scale. And the next month, you get another $5, 1,000, whatever, and you put it on the same scale. And then the next month, and then the next month, and 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 the next. Wait, something just happened here. Wait a minute, something just happened. Look. I just went above that line. Huh. I wonder what that means. Well, let's title this, maybe by titling it, Monthly Independence Income. The product of that formula. What is it that just happened? The whole key to the whole program just happened. One curve crossed over the other. One of these times I'm going to get a cheering audience when they get it. That'll wake you up. Yeah, the crossover point. Your monthly independence income is matching your expenses. This mythical, still at this moment, mythical result is matching exactly at this point, is matching your expenses. Now what's more important, can't you after a certain number of months, after finally coming to this rational place around your money, get that you could project that you've established a trend here, something reproducible? What have you got here but a finite period of time? That phrase that I kept on talking about earlier. At this point now, you can project that X number of months from now, this crossover point will happen. At that crossover point, my income from this investment will match my expenses. This tells me enough. I have established what is enough. Month in, month out, I have spent, my total expenses have been a product of my looking at my maximum fulfillment. I've defined the peak of that fulfillment curve out of my own living. Experientially. At this crossover point, I know that I have enough. That's enoughness. I've defined that for myself. Regardless of what the numbers here are, I've defined that for myself. If you had wanted to, you could have spent more. But this was maximum fulfillment. Because you had more money, your income was higher than your monthly expenses, so you had the option of spending more. You chose not to because your maximum fulfillment came from this particular level of expenses. At this point, your investment income matches your expenses. You're free. You're home free. That defines financial independence. What's that title of that song? Take this job and shove it? That's what you could do if you wanted to. You can just totally go on that monthly independence income. In the process, when people begin to work with this, in the process you begin to fantasize about what's going to happen there. You also begin to discover that that which is going to increase that fulfillment curve upward, instead of letting it drop off the other side, is things like contributing to others, serving, raga. You find it within yourself. So you begin to fantasize, if I became financially independent, I could work full-time on this project, or on that project, or these things that interest me, or I could, be working for hospice, or I could be giving seminars on how I did it, or and giving all the money away. Because at this point, you don't need to take money for anything. You're free. You're financially independent. You have enough coming in from this source. This monthly independence income. Cogitate on that for a few moments. What kind of bucks are we looking at? You really think we're looking at megabucks? There was a wonderful article in your newspaper here less than a week ago. I told you, the universe conspires. This is from the Vancouver Sun, Monday, October 28th. The way thrift works wonders. It's about a young lady, and she's got to be a brave young lady to allow all of her, she's fully exposed here. She's exposed. This is worse than the Playboy centerfold. Because all her finances are listed right here. Who's 29 years old. She earns only, that's what it says here, only earns $19,000 a year, manages to save 20% of her income. My opinion is a big deal. Should be able to save a hell of a lot more than that. Furthermore, she lives in a house that she has paid up most of. Her net worth at 29, just from working, and the article says she just was working as a salaried office clerk. Her net worth is $95,000. She didn't listen to the program. She was not a participant in the program. She figured this out on her own. She's worth $95,000 already. On top of that, it says in the article, she is going to have a 4-month cruise around the world that's going to cost her $23,000. That's where I turned, my stomach started to flip. Here's why. In the table, it shows that she's got a net income, net, after taxes, about $1,200 a month, of which she ends up saving something like $300. So about $900 a month, of which a humongous amount goes to mortgage. Home-related expenses are about $636. Her food bill runs about $100 a month, her clothing bill about $35 a month, and then miscellaneous and so on add up to another couple $100. She lives a very full life, very happy. She knows how to squeeze that buck, it says so here in the article. Intelligent, no big deal. Her joy in life is traveling. Her particular mission, I guess, for herself is to travel. So she does without some of the, frills in order to be able to save up for a $23,000 4-month cruise. Now, here's a fallacy in all of this. That if she was to sell that house and realize her net worth of $95,000, she would have an income, just investing that, say, at 12%, and we'll get to that, $95,000 at 12% over 12, $950 a month. In other words, she has the power right now to be financially independent from her own figures. What if she was to take that $23,000 that she's planning on spending an around-the-world trip? How long would it take for that to be doubled at 12%, compounded every 6 months, say? 6 years, just under 6 years. She would have $50,000. I worked this out just before in the last break. She would have $50,250 in under 6 years, just under 6 years. So just that money alone would put her halfway, just that money, not counting any of the additive money that she's already saving. She's saving another $300 a month. I didn't work all the figures out. I think this lady could be financially independent even without selling that house in about 4.5 years, just from guesstimating. 29-year-old local resident. No big deal. Nothing in that article says anything about her having inherited any big bucks or anything else. She says, yeah, I've been working, since I was about 16, not full-time, but, That comes back to why that's step one of looking at how much money has flowed into your life, so that you get some idea of your capacity to have money coming in.
This concludes session 11. Please take the necessary time to answer the review questions for session 11 on page 103 in your workbook. When you're ready to continue, answer the preview questions for session 12 on page 105, and then continue listening.
Step 9, it's up to you to become sophisticated, adept, knowledgeable about long-term, ultra-safe investment vehicles, interest-bearing investment vehicles. Now, the reason I put it that way in the note is because conditions change. I can't give you investment advice that by the time that you get to your crossover point, you will just blindly follow. Yes, boss. Conditions may be changed. What I can tell you is that there's very few investment vehicles that fit the criteria that are already implied. What do you want your money to be in? Safety, absolute safety, as safe as you can get. Not speculative, not something that goes up and down, not something whose income is going to vary. This figure you got to be sure of. You got to be absolutely sure of that figure for this to work. Otherwise, all this is meaningless. You don't want to be worrying about your money. It's not about being a stock market speculator. You also have no interest in your money increasing. This is purely about a stable income. So, what have I described? Government bonds. You just look in the longest term, safest bonds that you've got. I use 12% here because it's a nice divisor. And the fact is, within weeks it may be again available at 12%. Right now it's just over 11. Big deal. Why lock into a 30-year or 25-year bond? That's the idea of lifetime, as long as possible. Furthermore, you're looking at historically high interest rates. I know they're down from 3 or 4 years ago. Look at 10 years ago or 20 years ago, when you were lucky to get 4%. And now you're getting 11%. And how about 10 years from now, where the greatest likelihood is you'll be back down to 5 or 6%. So locking into that for 30 years. Once you bought that bond, you're guaranteed that income for the duration of that bond's life. There are other investment vehicles also available. Like I say, today is not about specific investment advice. But just so that you know the categories, there's provincial bonds. And I even recommend those issued in US dollars, I recommend in the US. Your Ontario provincial bonds are a very safe investment vehicle. Safety is it, non-speculative safety. You don't want to get back into the marketplace. You want to have that portfolio be something you stash, and every 6 months you get your interest check. That's it. All right, there's socially responsible stuff. Fine. There's lots of investment vehicles available. A lot of people are very pro World Bank because of new edge of appropriate technology. Others are down on the World Bank. That's not my subject. The subject is absolute safety, longest term that you can get. Now, what if you find in this curve, let's just pick a number. What if you find that per single person, $500 a month is more than enough? Then you're actually very happy, very fulfilled at $500 a month per person. So if you're a couple, it's $1,000, or kids, or whatever, any way you want to slice it. What kind of capital would you be looking at? $50,000. $50,000 would give you $500 a month. How long would it take to put $50,000 together? Well, I just pointed out, and that lady would take about 3.5, 4 years. Saving $500 a month the first year, which is perfectly feasible. The second year, because you've improved your techniques and because an income curve has been going up, you're capable of putting away $700 a month. And so on, just logical increases. In 55 months, thanks to the power of compounding, we're looking at compounding here. That means that this curve will swing upwards like that. It'll be concave. In 55 months at that kind of rate, you will have $61,179 for an income of about $611 a month. If you go all the way to 5 years, 60 months at that kind of rate, you will have an estate of $70,482.91. You know how much you actually saved? $39,000. But because of compounding, interest on the interest, that $39,000 became $70,400 in 55 months for a monthly income of $704. Do you see what I mean by finite period of time? It took me 5 years. I was flat broke in 65 and 1969 through straight salary. There was no speculation. That's what killed me between 60 and 65. I tried to do it the fast buck way. But through straight salary. Took me 5 years because I took a lot of wrong turns. The shortest on record that I know of is 15 months, starting from zero. A young woman who had absolutely no skills other than a rather pronounced Australian accent. And was living in Phoenix, Arizona. And she decided, she heard the talk, and she decided she was going to go for financial independence. And she set out to become the finest waitress Scottsdale, Arizona had ever known, a suburb of Phoenix. In 15 months, she had done it. Because of that dedication to be the finest waitress, valuing herself. With integrity, with absolute integrity, maintaining her health. Nothing sleazy, nothing, She got so good as a waitress that restaurants were guaranteeing her humongous minimums. Because people would be asking for her, would phone in their reservations and say, I want Heather's table. And if Heather wasn't on duty or her table was already, well, I'll find another restaurant, thank you. It was really that way. Because just being in her presence, she was right. She was impeccable. She was right on top of it. That kind of dedication. So starting from zero, that's the record. Now, a lot of people have walked out of the seminar realizing they're financially independent. Because just mentally doing that balance sheet, they realize, holy smokes, wait a minute now, I've got $200,000 in assets. $200,000? That can't be. Is that for real? You mean $200,000 at 12%? At 12? Holy moly! I got $2,000 a month already coming in. If I just got it out of those dippy investments or the dippy plans that I got, instead putting it into something solid, I'm home free. Other people, a week after the seminar, because they've done their inventory at home, and they discovered that that china that they had put away was spode, and that they could hawk that. They never use it, they're afraid of breaking it. That they could hawk it, they could sell it, and realize a humongous amount of capital from that. And I'm not suggesting you go and sell the family silver. I don't want to hear that, his program's about go home and sell the family heirlooms. But it may be appropriate. What value are you getting from them? One other thing, very important concept to have, and Wall Street invented a fancy word for it 20 years ago or so. Disintermediation. Is it a grave robber's problem-solving technique? Disintermediation. All that means is cutting out the middleman. It's stupid to put your money in a bank at 5% and then they go and put it into 9% short-term money or 12% long-term money with the same safety factor. There is nothing safe in the federal government. They're the ones guaranteeing. They're your FDIC. They're the ones guaranteeing your bank loans. Believe me, they're going to pay off their notes first. So going directly to the source instead of paying a middleman. And that's all the disintermediation means. It means cutting out the middleman. Too many people are still having 5% on their funds, or even worse, in various cash value, all kinds of other things, much less than what's available, with greater, equal or greater safety. So look at maximizing the use of whatever money you got. And I'm talking about whatever, the 50 or the 100 or the 100,000. It's all the same. Maximize the use of that money. Another aspect of the terminus of the program. It's not like all of a sudden you are only having that particular bond payment tide you over. Bond payments come every 6 months. An important part of the program is to have a cushion. That simply means 6 months or a year of income already in the bank. So if you're going to be living on, $5,000 a month or $500 a month, you got 12 times that amount already in the bank or in a money market fund or something quite safe, so that it acts like a cushion, like a rubber damper. So when your big blocks from the bonds come in every 6 months, it just builds that up and then you withdraw from it regularly and so on. So it's never like you're strapped for money. There is no such thing as being strapped for money in FI, in financial independence. All right. We also need to cover one of the great boogeymen. Inflation. Great boogeyman, isn't it? How come, with all the inflation that's been happening, I ain't spending any more now than I was in 1969? Somebody explain that one. Oh, wait a minute, we've had insane inflation. Oh yeah, cost of living index has gone up 263%, and then furthermore, yeah, I know all that. I read the Wall Street Journal too. I'm asking, how come I'm not spending any more now than I was in 1969? How come none of the people that I'm living with that have been financially independent for between 3 and 15 years, how come they're not spending any more than they were in 1969? That's interesting. There's something wrong here. How come people send me their financial charts and their financial tables and so on with little notes like, it's amazing, I am spending the same amount this month, last March, as I was in 1974, or whatever. I found an old record book of mine, an old checkbook, and I am spending the same amount as I was in 1974. How come? So it isn't just me, and it is not just the people that are, on the program. Okay, there is the possibility that consciousness grows faster than inflation. That's right. As that curve drops, as you become more conscious of your life energy, it's no longer money, it's life energy, you find that the drop it's taking is much faster than any inflation. I think there's a conspiracy out there to help us. I bought this tape recorder 12 years ago. I think it was 12 years ago. It's given me incredible service. It hasn't had a moment of downtime, and I use it like you wouldn't believe. I've used that nonstop, day in, day out, as a duplicating machine against another one, you know. I mean, that would wreck any recording head. No, not a dent. I got these new super hard recording heads, just came in about 8-10 years ago. You get what I'm trying to say to you? I've had that same little tape recorder. I haven't had that. This one's the first new tape recorder I've had to buy in a whole bunch of years. I got a car out there that cost me twice as much as a car in 1969. It's getting me 38 miles per gallon as opposed to 11 miles per gallon. Much more comfortable, much more fun to drive. And I get 50,000 miles between tune-ups. And I'm using synthetic oil. It gives me 25,000 miles between oil changes. Technology is moving in our favor. It is improving products. If you work out 10,000 miles a year or 20,000 miles a year of commuting on a 38 mile per gallon car, as opposed to a 12 mile per hour cattle boat that we used to drive 15 years ago, many of us, even BWs that were getting 22 miles per gallon at best and breaking down every 3 weeks, which was our experience with a number of them. We're very good VW mechanics. Do you get what I'm saying? That initial very high expense that looks like it's the cause or caused by inflation, the doubling of the price of that car, we're getting back an incredibly increased quality, reliability, better fuel consumption, etc., etc. That it used to be that if your tape recorder lasted, 2 years, you were lucky. 15 years ago, now you can, if you shop right, you can fully expect them to last 15, 20 years. Durability. All kinds of other things have been working. It's been a conspiracy. So once you expended once for that hard goods or capital goods or whatever you want to call it, you don't have to spend anymore. So if you look at your consumer goods, hard goods curve, it may be high initially, but now you've already bought the tape recorder. You don't have to buy the tape recorder anymore. It's going to go down. Tape recorder is no longer in the realm of purchasing. You buy the car, it's going to last you 15 or 20 years. It's no longer on the curve. That curve, the hard goods curve, has to keep on going down. Fine, so we've had an upward curve in the cost of other stuff. Food may be more expensive, even though prices now are matching prices in the 60s. But assuming the period between 1969 and now, food costs may have been going up. They're consumable items as opposed to hard goods. Net result of the two is pretty much across. So that's another explanation for how come most of us are not affected. Most of us on the program are not affected by inflation. All kinds of other interesting things like that. Most of us are spending a hell of a lot less and enjoying life a hell of a lot more.
This concludes Session 12. Please take the necessary time to answer the review questions for Session 12 on page 107 in your workbook, and then also complete the final review questions on page 109.
All of this is absolutely realistic. It's hard for me to convince people that this is within their ability until they've gone home and worked on it themselves. This is like a hardware store. This is the tools. I didn't do it to you. I provided some catalysts. But it's up to you to do the steps. And then, that's only then that you will see that it works. Go home and do it. Review the notes. If you have any intention of doing the program, work with the notes. It's a matter of getting your hands on. That's what I have to inspire. And that's it from me. I love you. Thank you.
Congratulations. You have completed this course on transforming your relationship with money. As a review, we suggest that you retake the whole course within the next few months and remember to put each and every step into practice. For more information on the New Roadmap Foundation, please contact P.O. Box 15320, Seattle, Washington 98115, or visit them online at www.newroadmap.org. The music on this program is by Glenn Velez, available through Sounds True. If you would like to order additional copies of this audio learning series, or to receive a free catalog of wisdom teachings for the inner life, please contact Sounds True, www.soundstrue.com, or call us toll-free, 1-800-333-9185, or write the Sounds True catalog, P.O. Box 8010, Boulder, Colorado 80306. Thank you for listening.